I was 29 the morning the silence finally made sense. At first, it was just wrong. Our rented villa was never quiet on my mother's birthday, not once in the 8 years we'd lived there. The old stone building on the hill, with its 3 floors and 6 balconies and completely unreasonable rent, usually woke up like a train station on days like this. Someone clattering pans, someone yelling for a missing shoe, someone slamming a door. At least one of my brothers test-driving the speakers at a volume our neighbors surely hated. But that morning, it was so quiet I could hear the fridge motorcycle on and off. I lay there for a moment, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. White plaster, thin crack in the corner like a fine pencil line. The same line I'd been looking at from the same bed in the same temporary room for the last 5 years. No voices, no music, no kettle hissing. I pushed back the blanket and sat up. My phone lay face down on the nightstand. No buzzing, no glow. When I picked it up, the screen was empty. No missed calls, no notifications, no family group chat that usually started pinging before 8 with some crisis about the menu or decorations. I checked the time, 9:07 a.m., on my mother's 50th birthday. The wrongness settled on my shoulders like a wet coat. I slid my feet into slippers and opened my door. The corridor was bare. The framed prints my mother loved, to make the place look more like a boutique hotel, as she put it, stared back at me. The door to Leon's room stood wide open, bed made, no heap of clothes on the chair. Adam's door open too. Bed stripped, mattress bare. I walked to the bathroom at the end of the hall, lights off, towels gone. "Mom!" My voice sounded small, swallowed up by the empty air. "Nothing." I went down the stairs, past the landing where my childhood trophies gathered dust, into the big, open-plan living room. No balloons, no streamers, no catering trays, no flower arrangements my mother always insisted on, even if we were too broke this month for me to replace my cracked laptop. Just sunlight through the tall windows falling on the long dining table. Bare. No tablecloth, no plates. The kitchen counters were clean. No half-prepped vegetables, no piles of dishes, no grocery bags. The dishwasher hung open, empty. Even the magnet collection on the fridge looked smaller. I stepped to the window and pulled the sheer curtain aside. The driveway was empty. No family sedan, no borrowed cars, not even the van my father sometimes got from his cousin just for big days. That sinking feeling in my stomach turned over into something sharper. I put my hand on the fridge handle and opened it. Mostly empty shelves. A carton of milk, half a lemon on a plate, a jar of mustard. Yesterday, the fridge had been crammed. I'd gone with my mother to the wholesale market after work, loading crates of food into my Toyota and paying for most of it, for now, because your father's transfer is late and we don't want to ruin the party, right? I remembered handing over my card, pin in muscle memory, the woman at the register announcing the total, $412.37. Now the trays of marinated meat, the cakes, the sparkling wine, the cheeses, all gone. I slowly closed the fridge door and stared at my own reflection in the steel. I opened my messages. The family group chat sat near the top. Us 4 plus mom and dad. Last message, from me, last night at 23:17. Me. Got the cake. Don't eat it at 2 a.m. this time. See you all in the morning. No replies. I scrolled. No messages from anyone after that. No good night, no we're home, nothing. I opened my mother's chat. Empty since Tuesday. A forwarded meme about aging gracefully, and a reminder to dress nicely. There'll be photos. We only turn 50 once. I frowned and went to my contacts. Marek Novak. Deleted. My thumb froze for a second. I scrolled faster. Eva Novak mom. Gone. Leon Adam. Gone. Even family home Wi-Fi. The network details I'd saved when I upgraded us to the faster plan. My pulse hammered in my throat. I backed out of contacts and opened call history. The numbers were still there. My father's, my mother's, both brothers. The little gray circles with their initials glowed like ghosts. That's when I remembered last night. "Hey, Sarah," Leon had said, hovering outside my room as I was backing up files for a client. "My phone's dead again. Can I just check a price for something? Quick." He'd stood just inside my door, grinning in that lazy way of his. 24 years old, still moving through life as if there were a hidden safety net stitched underneath him. I'd handed him my phone without looking up. "Don't open my email." "As if I want to see your spreadsheets," he'd said. I'd heard him tapping then. "Thanks, sis." and the phone had landed back in my hand as he wandered off. The call log told a different story now. 3 outgoing calls to my father's bank, 1 to my mother's friend Carolina, a few to unknown numbers. I scrolled past them and tapped the one number I knew by heart anyway, my aunt's. Aunt Magda always picked up. She lived for drama. It rang once, twice. "Hello?" she said. Her voice sounded bright, a little breathless. "Aunt Magda, it's Sarah," I said. "Where is everyone?" Silence. Not the empty house kind. The guilty kind. "Oh," her voice dropped a half tone. "You're at home?" "Yes." I pressed my fingers into the edge of the counter. I woke up and they're all gone. The cars, the food. Did something happen? Is Mom okay? On the other end, I heard muffled sound, a burst of laughter. Then, distant but clear, music thudding with a heavy beat, the kind that rattles glasses. Someone shouted, "Magda, come on, they're bringing the cake!" And another voice laughed. There was an echo, like they were in a big hall. My skin prickled. "Where are you?" I asked. She hesitated. "Sarah, your mother said, you know about the trip." "What trip?" My voice didn't rise, it flattened. "The birthday, the spa resort, in Zakopane. They booked the whole weekend," she said in a rush now, like pulling off a bandage. I stared at the empty fridge. "You're at a resort." "Yes," she said very quickly. "They wanted something special for Iwa's 50th. You know how long she's dreamed about it. The mountain views, the hot springs. Honestly, it's beautiful, Sarah, the snow." "So you're at a spa," I said. "Everyone?" "Well, yes," she said. Somebody laughed behind her again, higher this time. Adam. I'd know my little brother's voice anywhere. "Your parents, the boys, some cousins, the whole gang. They really went all out. There's a string quartet for dinner and me," I said. "Where do I fit into this picture?" A plate clinked. Someone told a joke. Through the phone, I heard my mother's distinctive laugh, the one that always turned into a cough at the end. "We thought you were busy," my aunt said quickly. "You always say work is crazy this time of year, all those year-end reports." "I didn't say I couldn't come," I said. "Well," she continued, grasping for safer ground, "your mother didn't want to burden you with the cost. You already help so much with the rent, right? She said it wouldn't be fair to ask you to pay for the trip as well, so—" The rent, my teeth pressed together. "So they paid for this?" I asked, and I could hear my own voice coming back at me, thin and flat through the speaker. "Oh, they got a good package," she said. "All inclusive. 4 days. Meals, spa, pool. For everyone. It's your mother's 50th, after all. It's only once. And your father said—" I heard another voice then, familiar, sharp. "Who are you talking to?" my mother called. Magda covered the receiver with her hand, but not well enough. "It's Sarah," she whispered badly. There was a short, awkward silence. Then another voice in the background, louder, Leon's. "Seriously? Why is she calling? We said we'd just let her think we couldn't afford anything big this year." My fingers went cold. "Magda, give me that," my mother's voice said, closer now. I didn't wait to hear more. I ended the call. The kitchen clock ticked above the doorway, slow and unbothered. Somewhere deep in the building, a pipe clicked. I stood perfectly still, my phone in my hand, looking at the reflection of my own face in the microwave door. Dark hair scraped into a messy bun, gray t-shirt, no makeup, mildly puffy eyes. The same woman who had moved back for a year, maybe 2, to help her parents out until they stabilized again. The same woman now standing alone in a house she'd been paying for, while the people she paid for soaked in mineral water and drank Prosecco from flutes. My mind unhelpfully did what it always does. Started calculating. I'd been back here since 24. It was a simple plan at first. I'd finished my degree in accounting, gotten a job at a mid-sized logistics company in the city, and found a tiny studio apartment. Then my parents' landlord announced he was raising the rent. "It's temporary," my mother had said, hands twisting in the tea towel, when she asked if I could move back for a while. "Just until we figure it out. Your father's hours got cut. We can't lose this place, Sarah. Not after everything. The boys need stability. You're so good with money. You understand." She always said that, "You understand," as if understanding equaled responsibility. The rent was $1,600 a month for a 6-room house in a prestigious neighborhood my parents never should have chosen in the first place. Their contribution, after the cuts and the late payments and the unexpected repairs, had averaged out to maybe $500. Every month, without fail, I'd transferred $100. Sometimes more when something came up. The boiler, a broken window, a half-yearly land tax payment. I was 29 now. 5 years and 7 months. 67 payments. I opened the calculator app with my thumb, still moving by habit even as the rest of me felt oddly separate, watching. When 100 times 67. The number popped up, bright and emotionless. Sanitary show. 73,700 euros. Gone. Not invested, not saved. Not a down payment on my own small flat. Not even acknowledged, most of the time. Just rent on a house too big for us. Too expensive. Too symbolic. I leaned my palms on the counter and exhaled. Add to that the little things. The $800 for the new washing machine when the old one died. The $200 for the couch, because guests will see it. The $300 for the car my father bought outright for the family, but registered in his name, with insurance taken from my account, just for now. And now, this. I pictured my mother, wrapped in a fluffy spa robe embroidered with the resort's logo, raising a glass. I pictured the booking confirmation I hadn't been allowed to see, the number at the bottom. How did they pay for it? On which card? From which account? I knew the answer, of course, because whose card had they used for the party food? Whose contact information did the landlord call when something was wrong? Whose email was on every bill? Mine. A strange sensation crept over me, not like anger, no heat, no shaking, but more like when you're doing a puzzle and suddenly, after staring at the jumble of cardboard for an hour, the pieces click. Image, pattern, picture. They had not forgotten me. They had removed my number, booked a luxury resort, and carefully not invited me. They had planned to let me wake up, think there was no party, no money, just, this year is simple, we'll celebrate next time. They had planned to let me keep paying, quietly, while they went away to rest from the stress of a life I was upholding. I waited for the hurt to come the way it always did. The heavy chest, the tight throat, the desire to call and confront, to cry down the phone, to say, how could you? I do everything for you. I thought we were a family. It didn't come. Instead, something cold and clear slid into its place. A line, straight and sharp. 5 years and 7 months. $73,700 in rent. Another approximate $16,000 in utilities, repairs, food. Whenever you can, you have a good salary. Weekends sacrificed to paint walls, clean gutters, fix cupboard doors, because my father's back hurt and my brothers didn't know how. $73,700 plus $16,000 plus, I typed more numbers with mechanical precision, roughly $10,000 in large purchases, machines, furniture, electronics, nearly €100,000 in 5.5 years. For people who just left me, I straightened slowly. I didn't scream. Didn't sweep the plates off the counter or slam the fridge door or call my aunt back to spit words I couldn't take back. My heart was beating fast. Yes, but there was a steady rhythm beneath it, like the ticking of the wall clock. This house, I realized looking around, wasn't mine. My name wasn't on the lease. My name wasn't on the front door. But the receipt for the washing machine was in a file in my wardrobe. The internet contract had my name on it. The gas and electricity bills, the home insurance, the bank statements, the bank card for the account my parents used when they need to pay something right away. The house wasn't mine. The bills were, the life ringing silently behind them was. My mind jumped, clean and quick, to an image, a set of scales. One side, my parents, my brothers, their fragile pride, their social media photos, my mother's insistence that, we may not be rich, but we are not ordinary, Sarah. We host like proper people. Your father's colleagues need to see we are not some poor relations. The other side, my time, my money, my sanity, my future. The scale had always been tipped. I just refused to see it. Enough, I heard myself say aloud, to the empty kitchen. The word didn't echo. It just sat there, dense and solid. I turned and walked back upstairs. The little office I'd carved out of the smallest bedroom waited there, paper-smelling and familiar. A narrow desk, my laptop, a second monitor, the printer that liked to jam on multiple page runs. The metal filing cabinet in the corner, bottom drawer labeled, House, Family. I pulled it open. The file I wanted was the biggest one. White, bulging slightly at the edges, elastic band around it. On the front, in my blocky handwriting, Rent and Bills, 2019-2024. I carried it to the desk and set it down like a brick. Every transaction, every receipt, bank statements printed and highlighted, utility letters, the contract for the washing machine, the invoice for the couch, the broadband installation agreement, a printout of the rental contract I'd been allowed to look at once, then quietly photocopied later when nobody was home. I opened the file, flipped through the tabs, feeling the thickness of paper under my fingers. 5 years and 7 months of evidence. Everything suddenly felt very simple. I wasn't going to slap anyone, or throw anyone's clothes into the street, or scream down the phone. I wasn't going to send a tearful group message or post something vague and bitter on social media. I was going to do what I do best. I was going to account. I sat down, opened my laptop, and typed into a search bar, moving company same day. Most places were closed for the long weekend. One, though, offered priority weekend relocation. There was a note about higher fees, call for price. I called. Express Relocations, this is Piotr, a man answered. Hello, Piotr, I said, hearing my own voice calm and clear, as if in a meeting. My name is Sarah Nowak. I need to move essential furniture and appliances from my current address to a new apartment. Tomorrow morning, if possible. He blew out a breath. It's tight. I understand it's last minute and a holiday, I said. You can charge the emergency rate. I'm willing to pay. He paused. Papers rustled. I pictured him looking at a board. We can do 9 a.m., he said. Crew of 3, 1 truck. We'd need a list of big items in advance. I'll email you within the hour, I said. How much is the emergency rate? He told me it was high, I agreed. He asked for my new address. I'll confirm it, I said. I'm signing the lease this afternoon. When I hung up, my hand was steady. Next search, small studio apartment, immediate move-in, city name. Listings popped up. Most decent ones were available from next month. One, though, caught my eye. 28 square meters, top floor, tiny balcony, basic furnishings, available immediately, short application process, professionals preferred. The rent was $650, including heating. I called the number. A woman with a clipped, efficient voice answered. Yes, it's still available, she said. The previous tenant left quickly. We're doing viewings today and tomorrow. I can come in an hour, I said. I work full-time as an accountant, I have stable income, and I can bring proof. Silence then. Come at 11. I noted the address. Then I opened a new spreadsheet. At the top, I typed, House Inventory, Sarah's Purchases Only. In one column, Item. Next, Date of Purchase. Next, Vendor. Next, Amount. Next, Location and House. Next, Proof, Receipt or Bank Statement, Warranty. I flipped open the file and started with the largest items. Washing machine, January 2020, media marked, $799, laundry room, receipt, bank statement. Fridge, October 2021, IKEA, $1,099, kitchen, receipt, warranty. Corner sofa, March 2019, Agata Mebel, $1,230, living room, bank statement, delivery note. 42-inch TV, June 2019, RTV Euro AGD, $499, living room, receipt. Router plus mesh system, May 2022, online, $350 total, various rooms, email invoice. Coffee machine, birthday gift to myself, but used by everyone, November 2020, $450, kitchen, receipt. Desk plus office chair, 2017, 0400, my room. Lamps, rug, side table. By the time I finished, the list ran to 2 pages. The total at the bottom made my eyebrows lift. Almost $6,000. All bought by me. All paid with my cards. All invoices printed and filed. I saved the document, then on impulse I opened a new one. Contributions Overview 2019-2024. Rent contributions every month, $100, total already calculated. Average utilities paid directly by me. Electricity, gas, water, internet. I skimmed through the statements and came up with a number. About $250 a month extra, on average. Multiply by 67 months, $16,750. Add repairs, roughly $8,000 over the years. Plumber, electrician, roof guy, boiler parts. Plus my share of groceries that somehow always covered more household needs than my parents. Over $100,000. I stared at the total and felt something old and exhausted inside me stand up. If a client came to me with numbers like this, I'd tell them they're subsidizing someone else's lifestyle, bleeding out slowly while others threw parties on their credit. I'd tell them to stop. I closed the laptop, put my file gently into my bag, and changed into jeans and a clean sweater. On the way to the door, I grabbed my keys. There was one more thing to do before the movers came. The studio apartment was exactly what the pictures had promised. Small, a bit scuffed, but bright. One room with a kitchenette along one wall, a compact bathroom with a shower, a narrow balcony with a view of other roofs and the tops of trees, clean white walls, gray laminate floor, a sagging but serviceable sofa bed. "It's not luxury," the landlady, a woman in her late 50s, said frankly, clasping her hands in front of her. "But it's quiet. The neighbors are nice, and the heating works." I walked to the window and looked out at the slice of sky. I'd never had a place that was just mine. My old studio had been a stopgap before the call back home. The big house had never belonged to me, no matter how much I paid. My mother controlled the decor, my father the TV, my brothers the noise levels. I turned back to the landlady. "I'll take it." She blinked, surprised. "Don't you want to think—" "I'm sure," I said. "I can pay 3 months' rent now, plus deposit." We sat at the small kitchen table while she printed the contract. Name, ID number, employer details. I showed her my work contract, my last 3 payslips. She nodded approvingly. "You're very organized," she said. "Yes," I said, "I am." I signed my name on the last page. The pen left a smooth line, no shaking at all. When I left an hour later, I had a set of keys, a stamped contract, and a new address. On the bus back, I stared out of the window at streets I knew well, thinking not of my parents in their hotel bathrobes, but of cables. Electricity, gas, water, internet, all the invisible filaments I'd been holding. I got off one stop early and went into a cafe, ordered a coffee, and opened my laptop again. One by one, I looked up the accounts. Electricity company. Contract holder, Sarah Nowak. Address, family house. I clicked contact, typed in my account number, and wrote a simple message requesting service disconnection effective in 3 days with a final meter reading. Gas, same. Water, same. Internet provider. A call this time because their interface was terrible. "May I ask why you're disconnecting?" the woman on the phone asked. "I'm moving," I said. "All right. The next occupant can establish their own service," she chirped. "You'll get your final bill by email." I gave her my new address for the postal copy. As an afterthought, I logged into my bank's app and opened the standing orders section. There it was. Rent, $2,100, every 5th of the month, to landlord Ivan. I clicked on it. "Are you sure you want to cancel this standing order?" the app asked. I stared at the words. "Yes," I said, and pressed confirm. It felt like snipping a wire. On the bus ride home, I thought of other wires. My father's car insurance, still drawn from my account each month, because it's cheaper when you add it to your policy. The loan payment for the restaurant equipment my parents had helped my uncle with 3 years ago, which somehow ended up partly on my credit card when the bank refused. "You have a better score, Sarah. You're the smart one." I wouldn't stop paying everything at once. That would be chaotic. But the currents needed to be redirected. One last thing, I told myself as the familiar street approached: document everything. I barely slept that night. Not from anxiety, from logistics. In my room, my not really mine room, I opened my wardrobe and pulled out my clothes, sorting them into suitcases. Work clothes in one, casual in another. Underwear, socks, shoes, personal documents went into my backpack. Old university books I couldn't bear to part with went into a box. The rest I left. My childhood things in the attic, school projects, the box of ballet costumes my mother refused to throw away. All of that belonged to the life they'd chosen. They could keep it. The moving company's email confirmation arrived just after midnight. 9 a.m., 3 movers, estimate 4 hours. I set my alarm for 7 and lay down on my half-stripped bed, staring at the familiar crack in the ceiling. On the other side of the country, probably, my mother would be in a soft hotel bed, waking up to mountain views. They were likely having the breakfast buffet, clinking glasses, taking photos. I didn't feel jealous, I felt distant. At 7 sharp, I got up, showered, dressed, made coffee in the machine I'd be taking with me in a few hours. I drank it slowly, standing in the kitchen, looking at the appliances like items in a store window. Which ones were mine, which ones weren't? My phone stayed silent on the table. No calls, no messages. Either they hadn't noticed my call to Magda, or they'd decided to pretend it didn't happen. Fine. At 8:57, the doorbell rang. I opened the door to 3 men in navy overalls with express relocation stitched on the front. "Ms. Nowak?" the tallest one asked. "Yes," I said, holding up my file. "Thank you for coming. Come in." They stepped into the hallway, looking around the high-ceilinged space. "Where are we starting?" the tall one, Piotr, from the phone asked. "Living room," I said. We walked in together. I'd turned the big central lamp on, though daylight spilled through the balcony doors. The couch, the TV, the rug, the coffee table, shelves crammed with my mother's knickknacks. I put the file down on the bare corner of the dining table and opened it to the inventory printout. "These items are going," I said, tracing them with my finger. The sofa, the coffee table, the TV, the small bookshelf in the corner, the floor lamp. I have proof of purchase for all of them here, if anyone in the building makes trouble. Pyotr raised his eyebrows slightly. "Messy divorce?" he asked, not unkindly. "Messy family," I said. "And no, they're not here, they're at a spa." He let out a small, disbelieving snort and signaled to his crew. They moved quickly. The sofa was detached, wrapped in blankets, taped. The coffee table's legs unscrewed. The TV came down from the wall mount, cables neatly coiled. "Mount stays," I said. "It was here." They nodded. In the kitchen, it was more work. They slid the fridge out, disconnected the water line, wrapped it, and eased it onto a dolly. The coffee machine, toaster, microwave went into padded boxes. "We're leaving that," I said, pointing to the old chipped kettle my parents dragged from apartment to apartment since their 20s. "That, too," pointing at the cheap dining chairs my father had found on some online marketplace. They didn't ask why, they just followed the list. In the laundry room, the washing machine thumped as they shifted it, then rolled quietly away. The house, with each item removed, showed its bones. Dust outlines, faded patches, the cheap original fixtures underneath my upgrades. At one point, as Pyotr and his colleague wrestled my office desk through the hallway, the neighbor from downstairs, Mrs. Zielinska, poked her head out of her door. "What's going on?" she asked, eyes narrowed. Her gaze flicked to the movers, the boxes, the dismantled couch. "Just moving," I said, stepping out so she had to focus on me. "Don't worry, the stuff I'm taking is mine." She pursed her lips. "Your poor mother," she said. "She told me you're so responsible, always helping. And now you leave her?" "Yes," I said calmly. "Now I leave her. Have a nice day." Her mouth opened, then closed. She retreated, muttering. Her door shut. I didn't look back. By noon, the truck was almost full. My room was down to a mattress on slats and the wardrobe fixed to the wall. The living room was a hollow shell. The kitchen looked like a rental listing photo. Bare counters, mismatched old cupboards. Pyotr handed me the paperwork, propping the clipboard on the remaining dining chair. "All loaded," he said. "If we go straight, we can be at the new place in half an hour." "I'll meet you there," I said, signing. He tapped the folder. "You've got everything?" "Yes," I said, "everything I need." After they left, I walked through the house with my phone, filming. I narrated the date and time, the fact that the walls hadn't been damaged when the TV came off, that the floor had no scratches where the couch had been, the empty sockets on the walls where my lamps had stood. In the kitchen, I zoomed in on the old steel sink, the lost spoon behind it, the crumbs in the corners. Reality, not Instagram. Upstairs, I filmed my bare room, the cheap mattress, the thin curtains, the empty shelf where my books had been. No damage, just absence. In my parents' room, I didn't touch anything. My mother's jewelry box on the vanity, my father's tie rack, the unmade bed. I filmed the hall again on my way down, then the front door, inside and out, showing the intact lock. Back in the kitchen, I opened the drawer where my mother kept incoming mail and pulled out the recent bills. Electricity, 186 hour. Gas, 102. Water, 64. Internet, 89. All now addressed to the household instead of me, because 3 days earlier I'd changed the contact details to my mother's email. I stacked them neatly in the center of the wooden table. Beside them, I placed the keyring, heavy with house keys I'd carried since I was 19. The metal clinked softly on the wood. No note, no explanation. I owed no written justifications to people who had booked a secret spa trip with my card and pretended I didn't exist. On my way out, I paused in the doorway and looked at the house. High ceilings, big windows, echoing emptiness. I thought of the first time we moved in, how proud my parents had been, how my mother had twirled in the bare living room. "It's like something from a movie," she'd said. "We're not stuck in those concrete blocks anymore. This is a real home." Then she'd turn to me, eyes shining. "You'll see. Everything will be better now. Your father will get that promotion. The boys will get into good schools. We'll pay you back for everything, Sarah. We'll all succeed together." I'd believed her. I stepped out, pulled the door shut behind me. The lock clicked. "Everything's better now," I said quietly, and walked down the steps to my car. The studio filled up faster than I expected. The movers carried in the couch, which dwarfed the room at first, but in a comforting way. The coffee table, the TV, the shelves, the desk. The washing machine went into the tiny bathroom, barely fitting between the shower and the wall. The fridge slid snugly into the gap in the kitchenette with a millimeter to spare. Piotr stood in the doorway, hands on hips, surveying their work. "There," he said, "tiny palace." I smiled. "It is." He lowered his voice. "You sure you're okay, miss?" "Yes," I said, for the first time in a long time. He shrugged, accepted my envelope with the extra emergency fee, and left. When the door closed behind him, the new silence was unfamiliar and thick. I stood in the middle of the room and turned slowly. My couch, my coffee table, my TV, my fridge, my desk and chair and lamp, all mine. Every bill, every receipt, every transfer traced back to my name. My shoulders dropped bit by bit, as if someone had been standing behind me for years, pushing down, and finally stepped away. I unpacked until late afternoon, clothes into the small wardrobe, plates and cutlery into drawers, coffee beans into the familiar jar. In the bathroom, I lined up my toiletries on a small shelf, nothing mixed with anyone else's. Before bed, I opened my laptop and checked my emails. The electricity company confirmed disconnection at the old address for the next day at noon. Gas, water, internet all similarly scheduled for the following 48 hours. I set up new contracts for this place. Electricity, internet, entry-level single-person plans. Reasonable. Within my budget, not propping up anyone else's excess. At 11, I turned off the lamp and pulled out the sofa bed. The springs creaked. The mattress was thin. I didn't care. I slept like I hadn't in years. 3 days later, my phone buzzed while I was filling out an expense report at work. Ring, front door, motion detected. I hadn't deleted the app or removed my login, even though I could have. The doorbell camera was technically mine. I'd ordered it when my mother started worrying about those stories on the news and installed it myself. I glanced at the notification and tapped it. The familiar image appeared, the front of the house, only now it wasn't empty. My father stood in the frame, setting a suitcase down with a grunt. He looked tired, a little heavier. Same worn leather jacket. My mother stood beside him, wearing a thick coat and a pale blue scarf I'd given her 2 birthdays ago. Behind them, Leon dragged 2 large suitcases. Adam struggled with a duffel and a plastic bag full of something from the highway shop. They were tan, not dramatically, but enough to see. Spa tan, rested tan. I plugged in my headphones. Just open, Merrick." My mother's voice crackled through the phone. "My hands are freezing." "I'm trying," my father muttered, fumbling with the keys. "This lock." He finally got it, swung the door open. The 4 of them stepped inside, the view shifting to the empty hallway. I switched to audio only and minimized the video to a smaller window on my screen, tucking it behind an Excel sheet. I knew what they were going to see next. "What happened to the light?" my mother's voice asked after a second. A click. Another click. "The switch. It's not working." "Maybe a fuse blew," my father said. "I'll check the box." I pictured him going to the panel in the corridor, opening it, flipping the breakers. Nothing. "Merrick?" My mother again, sharper. "The power, it's not just here, is it?" It's off," he said. A moment's silence. Then Leon's voice rising. "The Wi-Fi's dead. The modem's not even on." "Did you forget to pay the bills, Dad?" Adam asked, half joking, half afraid. "Don't be ridiculous," my mother snapped. "Sarah takes care of that." There it was. A pause. "Where is the TV?" Adam suddenly shouted. "What?" "The TV. It's gone." I clicked the video back to full screen. The living room gaped at them. No couch, no coffee table, no TV. Just dust outlines on the wall, pale rectangle where the screen had been, indentations in the carpet. My mother dropped her bag. It hit the floor with a soft thud. "What did she do?" she whispered. Leon's voice came from deeper inside. The washing machine's gone. The fridge. What the hell? My father stomped into the kitchen, and the camera caught the edge of him as he turned sharply, taking in the empty spaces. Thieves, my mother said. We've been robbed while we were away. This is because you wouldn't pay for the alarm, Marek. I told you. No one broke in, Adam said suddenly, uncharacteristically firm. Look at the lock. And why would thieves take the couch? My father swore under his breath. Call the police, my mother said. Now, call them, and call Sarah. She was here. You told her not to make a fuss about not coming, but now look. Everything's gone. This is... Leon, standing in the hall, looked straight at the Ring camera. Wait, he said. He pulled out his phone. Let me see the recordings. If someone came in, they had to pass the door. He tapped the screen. His face tightened. There's something from 3 days ago, he said slowly. All day, a truck. Movers. Movers? My mother repeated. We didn't book... He went quiet, watching. He swallowed. It's Sarah. My mother made a choking sound. I watched my own form on his screen, like an out-of-body experience. Me in my jeans and sweater, file under my arm, holding the door as the movers carried the couch out. Me gesturing toward the TV, the fridge. Me standing with Piotr in the doorway, signing paperwork. Calm. Almost bored. She cleaned us out, my father shouted. She stole everything. She took what she bought, Leon said, but his voice was weak. That's the same thing, my mother snapped. We're a family. She bought it for the house. It's ours. You can't... My phone buzzed with an incoming call. My mother's number, then my father's, then Leon's. They stacked up like falling tiles on the screen. I watched for another minute. My mother paced, gesturing wildly. My father dialed, pressed the phone to his ear, waited, scowled. I let it ring out. Then I muted the Ring app and went back to my spreadsheet. The first police call came an hour later. Ms. Nowak? A male voice said. This is Officer Kowalski with the municipal police. We're at your parents' house. They claim there's been a theft of household items and that you might have information. I looked at the time. 4:32. I just sat down with a bowl of pasta in front of my TV. I have more than information, I said. I have documentation. Can we speak in person? He asked. At your current address? Yes, I said. I'll text it to you. He hesitated. Your parents are with us. They're very upset. They believe you took their belongings. They're wrong, I said. But I understand they're upset. I'll have coffee ready when you arrive. He didn't quite know what to do with that. We'll be there within the hour, he said. I tidied out of habit, but there wasn't much to do. The studio was still freshly organized. I put my bowl in the sink, wiped the coffee table, straightened a stack of magazines. Then I took the file from my bag and laid it on the table. The inventory spreadsheet, the bank statements, the receipts, the utilities contracts. I opened it to the section with the largest purchases and put a yellow sticky note at the electricity contract and rent standing order printouts. When the doorbell rang, I checked the peephole. 2 uniformed officers. Behind them, in the stairwell, 4 familiar figures craning their necks. I opened the door just enough for the officers to step in. Ms. Nowak? The older officer asked. His badge read Kowalski. Yes, I said, please come in. The younger one, whose badge said Woodzak, glanced behind him at my parents, then at me. Your family is... They can wait in the corridor, I said. This is my apartment. They don't live here. He nodded once, almost a reflex to authority, and stepped inside. I closed the door behind them. The studio felt suddenly smaller with 2 uniformed men in it. The TV loomed. So did the fridge. The coffee machine gleamed on the counter. These are the items in question? Officer Kowalski asked. Some of them, I said. Please sit. They sat at the small table. I poured coffee from the French press I'd made in advance. No sugar, I said, but I have milk. Black is fine, he said. He took the cup, then the file. I have reason to believe my parents may have implied that I removed items from their house without their consent, I said. That is technically true, but I have legal ownership of every item I took. This should clarify. He opened the file, flipped through. His eyes moved faster as he took in the tabs. Appliances, furniture, utilities, bank transfers. Very organized, he murmured. It's my job, I said. He stopped at the TV receipt. Date, store, my name, the fridge invoice. the washing machine contract, with the showroom's stamp. He skimmed the bank statements I'd highlighted, the rent transfers, utilities, repairs, with my name as sender, the landlord's as recipient. These are all in your name, he said. Yes. There's also the matter of the rent and bills, I said, sliding the contributions overview toward him. I have been paying the majority of rent and all utilities for 5 years and 7 months. My name is not on the lease. I do not own the house. I have no right to the property itself. But these items, I gestured at the TV, the fridge, the washing machine, the sofa, were purchased by me. For years, my parents and brothers have used them without contributing financially to their purchase or upkeep. The younger officer looked at my TV, then at me. His expression softened, just a fraction. They went on a holiday this week, I continued. Spa resort in Zakopane. My aunt accidentally informed me this morning. They used funds from the account I regularly top up for household expenses. They did not invite me and, in fact, went to the trouble of deleting their contacts from my phone so I would not call. Officer Kowalski sat back slightly, file still open. And your response was to move out. Yes, I said, to move myself out, not them. And to take everything you had bought, he said. Yes. He tapped the file once with his finger, then closed it. As the items appear to be registered to you with clear proof of purchase, we cannot treat this as theft, he said. You cannot legally steal your own property. Outside the door, my mother's voice rose. What is taking so long? She's manipulating them, I know it. Officer Wuchek's jaw tightened. Furthermore, Officer Kowalski added, if we proceed, there is ample evidence here that you have been financially supporting that household for an extended period, far beyond what you would be strictly obligated to. If you wished, you could pursue reimbursement. I shook my head. I don't want their money, I said. I just want them to stop using mine. He gave me a look I couldn't quite decipher. Respect, pity, recognition. Would you like to file a harassment or intimidation complaint? He asked. If they continue to contact you aggressively, we can... No, I said. If they call, I will block them. I only ask that you explain to them, clearly, that they have no legal case. We will, he said. He stood, closing the file and handing it back to me. Thank you for the coffee. You're welcome, I said. I walked them to the door. When I opened it, my parents surged forward. Sarah! My mother cried, eyes red. How can you do this to us, to your own family? We come home and everything is gone. We were robbed. Your father nearly had a heart attack. Officer Wuchak put a hand up. Please, Mrs. Nowak, step back. My father's face was tight with anger. You'll give it back, he said. All of it. This is our home. You have no right. I had every right, I said quietly, and I exercised it. It's done. You ungrateful girl, he hissed. After everything we've done for you. We gave you this life. We paid for your education. And this is how you repay us? You shame us in front of the neighbors, in front of the police. The officers are done here, I said, looking at them, not him. They have told you there is no case, haven't they? Sarah, my mother sobbed. Please, we can talk. We're a family. You can't just abandon your parents, your brothers. Leon has plans for his business. Adam is still studying. How will we live? You know how your father's job is. It's not secure. And the landlord can talk to you, I said. I no longer pay him. That standing order has been canceled. She stared at me as if I'd shot someone. You can't, she whispered. We will be homeless. You can get a smaller place, I said. A realistic one. You can work more hours. You can say no to luxury trips you can't afford. You can apply for aid or talk to the bank like other adults. It's not my job to keep you in a house you never should have rented. My brother stood a little behind them. Leon's arms were folded. His jaw was clenched. This is extreme, he said. You're punishing us because you feel left out. You left me out, I said. On purpose. That's not a feeling, that's a fact. You're overreacting, he snapped. For once, I said, I'm reacting, that's all. Adam shoved his hands in his pockets, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. Sarah, he said, tone pleading now. What about the internet? I have assignments, deadlines, exams. You can't just cut everything. You're 19, I said. You know how to set up a Wi-Fi contract. There are student plans. It takes 15 minutes. Officer Kowalski cleared his throat gently. Mr. and Mrs. Nowak, he said, stepping between us. As I explained, your daughter has provided documentation proving that the items she removed belonged to her. There was no forced entry. She had a key. This is a civil matter, not a criminal one. If you continue to come here and harass her, we will treat it as such." My father's face went purple. "We're her parents," he sputtered. "We can't harass our own child." "You can," the officer said evenly. "And you are. I suggest you all go home and sort out your finances. This young woman has sorted out hers." My mother flinched like he'd hit her. "Sarah," she whispered once more, "think about this. One day we'll be gone and you'll regret—" "I've spent most of my 20s thinking about you," I said. "Now I'm going to think about myself. Go home, Mom." I stepped back and closed the door. Her voice spilled through, muffled, pleading. My father's angry rumble. Leon's curses. Adam's low murmur. The officer's firmer tones. Then footsteps. The echo of them down the stairwell. Silence. I stood there for a moment, forehead resting against the cool wood of the door. The hollow feeling I'd expected didn't come. Neither did triumph. Just quiet. I turned away and went back to my desk. The file lay there, weighty as ever. I slid it into the bottom drawer. I didn't need to look at it again for a while. The lawsuit arrived precisely 7 weeks later. That was enough time for them to try everything else. First, the calls. Dozens of them, the first week. My mother alternating between tears and fury. My father going straight to indignation, already rehearsing legal arguments. "You signed nothing. You have no right," he said on one voicemail. "The house is ours. The things inside are ours. You have duties as a daughter. The law is on our side." It wasn't. I blocked their numbers. Then came softer attempts. Messages from Adam on social media. "Can we at least talk? This is tearing Mom apart." Photos of the now bare living room with sad face emojis. A screenshot of a final shutoff notice from the gas company, as if the crisis had arrived out of nowhere. I wrote back once to Adam and only him. "You are an adult. You can open an account, call the company, work part-time, ask for help from someone who is not me." He sent a sad face and didn't reply again. My aunt called once more, voice thick with concern. "They might lose the house," she said. "The landlord is furious. The rent is late again. They can't pay without your help, Sarah, just until they sort it out." "No," I said. "But they're your parents," she pressed. "They work so hard for you. Put food on your table, clothes on your back. They gave up so much." "So did I said. "I just stopped." The letter from the court, when it finally came, was almost anticlimactic. Plain envelope, plain paper, summons to a small claims hearing. The plaintiff, Marek and Ewa Nowak. The defendant, Sarah Nowak. Claim, $20,000 wade, about $4,300, for emotional distress and unlawful removal of shared family property. I read it twice, then placed it on the coffee table. The old me, the one from before the spa revelation, would have panicked, called a friend, searched for lawyers, lost sleep. The me sitting there now reached for the file. The file had grown. I'd added the police report, the confirmations of utility cancellations, copies of messages I'd saved just in case. A summary page, clear and simple. The court hearing was in a bland beige room with fluorescent lights buzzing faintly overhead. A part of me observed it clinically, the way I observed clients' offices when I went for audit meetings. My parents sat at the long table opposite mine. They looked smaller than I remembered. My mother's hair had more gray. My father's shoulders slumped in a way I hadn't seen before. Neither of my brothers came. My parents' lawyer, a tired-looking man in a suit that had seen better days, cleared his throat and began. He spoke of family, duty, tradition, about how I'd always been the responsible one and had suddenly and without reason withdrawn financial support, causing them substantial hardship and emotional devastation. He used the word betrayal twice. He insisted that the items I took were intended as gifts to the family and thus communal property, regardless of the name on the receipts. At one point, he tried to paint me as unstable. "She had some emotional issues when she was younger," he said vaguely. "She can be impulsive." I stared at my folded hands and did not react. The judge glanced at me, then at the file in front of me, then back at my parents' lawyer. "Do you have proof of purchase for any of the items you claim were unlawfully taken?" the judge asked. My parents' lawyer shuffled papers. Your Honor, the circumstances. Yes or no, the judge said. No, but. Then I'll hear from the defendant, the judge said, turning to me. Ms. Nowak? I didn't stand and deliver a monologue. I slid the file across instead. Everything is tabbed, I said. Appliances, furniture, transfers to the landlord, utility bills. The summary is at the front. The items I removed from the house are listed with proof of purchase. All major expenses are highlighted. He opened it. The weight of paper smacked the surface with a sound that made my mother flinch. For a while, the only sound in the room was the rustle of plastic sleeves. The judge's eyebrows climbed incrementally. He lingered on the rent transfers, the 67 months, the utilities, the highlighted sums. So, he said finally, flipping back to the front and looking at my parents over the top of his glasses. Let me summarize what I see here. Your daughter paid approximately 73,000 euros worth of rent over 5 years and 7 months. Additionally, around 16,000 for utilities and 8,000 for repairs and larger household purchases. Is that correct? My father shifted in his seat. Yes, but that was her contribution as a member of the household, he said. We raised her. This is normal. Children help their parents. She has a good job. She could afford it. She contributed more than each of you, the judge said dryly, by a large margin. My father's mouth opened and closed. The judge tapped the page listing the appliances. These items, TV, fridge, washing machine, sofa, etc., were purchased by her in her name with her funds, he continued. She removed them from a house that she does not own, but where she lived as a tenant in effect, albeit an unwritten one. You are claiming emotional damages because she took them? They were for the family, my mother burst out. She always said, we need a better fridge. We need a bigger couch for when guests come. She never said they were just hers. What if people come over now and see how we live? What will they think? We will look like... She stopped herself. Like what, Mrs. Nowak? The judge asked mildly. Like we can't manage, she said in a small voice. Like failures. We worked so hard. And your daughter's hard work? He asked. She glared at me as if I'd betrayed her by existing in that sentence. She's always been clever with money, she said. We're not like that. We didn't have her opportunities. She's our eldest. She's supposed to help. That's how it's done. Supposed to help, the judge repeated, not obliged by law. He closed the file. This is not an inheritance case. It's not a question of filial piety. It's a small claims case about alleged theft and emotional damages, he said. On the facts, the items taken were bought by Ms. Nowak. She had a key to the house. There was no forced entry. The police saw no evidence of a crime. She does not owe you damages for taking her own property. My mother's mouth trembled. We are devastated, she said. We can barely pay the rent now. We had to move Adam to a cheaper school. Leon had to cancel his business plans. We lost our lifestyle. She destroyed everything. That has to mean something. You lost a lifestyle you could not afford without her ongoing support, the judge corrected gently. She chose to stop subsidizing you. The law does not require her to continue. Children are not walking pensions, Mr. and Mrs. Nowak. He turned back to me. Ms. Nowak, do you wish to counterclaim for any of the funds you provided? On the basis of unjust enrichment, perhaps? I shook my head. No, Your Honor, I said. Keeping my property and being free of further obligation is enough. He nodded once. Very well. Then this matter is simple, he said. The claim is dismissed. No damages awarded. Court costs to be borne by the plaintiffs. And Mr. and Mrs. Nowak. His voice sharpened. I strongly advise you not to misuse the court's time with personal vendettas disguised as legal disputes. If you file further baseless claims, there may be sanctions. His gavel knocked once. My parents sat frozen for a second. The lawyer cleared his throat, murmured something about options and other avenues, but my mother barely heard him. She stood up slowly, like someone twice her age, and gathered her coat. She didn't look at me. My father did. His stare was cold, accusing, as if I'd stolen his life instead of my own. You'll regret this, he said quietly. When we're gone, when you're alone, you'll remember what you did. I already remember what I did, I said. I finally put my name on my own life. He snorted and walked away. My mother trailed after him, back stiff. They didn't wait outside the building. I stepped out into the sharp winter sunlight alone, file under my arm, breath puffing white in the air. The city moved around me. Buses, people in coats, a dog tugging its owner, someone laughing into a phone. I felt strangely light. No more automatic payments. No more hidden subsidies. No more legal threats. Just my life. The consequences for them came in waves, not sudden crashes. First, the landlord. They held on to the house another month, cobbling together enough for partial rent, trying, I'm sure, to appeal to his sympathy. He had none. To him, they were tenants behind on payments. The eviction notice came in March. They moved into a cramped two-bedroom apartment across town. I saw the photos on my cousin's Facebook. Low ceilings, peeling paint. One of those ancient gas stoves with a pilot light that always goes out. My parents took the larger bedroom, of course. The smaller one went to Leon and Adam. My aunt later told me in a tone of horrified fascination that they'd put their two adult sons in bunk beds. "Can you imagine," she said, "at their age, after the villa?" I could. Adam enrolled in a cheaper university closer to the new place. He dropped out of his private program, losing a semester's fees. Leon took a job at a phone shop, selling contracts instead of starting the cafe he'd endlessly talked about, but never formally planned. My mother started posting items for sale online: jewelry, designer handbags, barely used espresso machine parts. She messaged me once about it. "You see what we've come to," she wrote. "Selling my memories. I hope you're happy." I left it on read. My father finally went back to full-time shifts at the warehouse, instead of the comfortable part-time schedule he'd justified for years with vague talk about stress and blood pressure. They stopped hosting big family events. My aunt took over the holidays. Photos from Easter showed them perched at her table, slightly out of place, in clothes that suddenly looked cheap without the backdrop of the big house. People started asking questions. What happened? Why did you move? Where is the nice villa? Where is Sarah? Gossip does what gossip does. Some versions painted me as ungrateful. Others muttered about my parents' spending. Eventually, my aunt called again, not to scold, but to negotiate. "You've made your point," she said. "They're suffering. They miss you. Your mother cries." "I didn't do this to make a point," I said. "I did it because I was done. Their suffering is the result of their choices, not my absence." "But you could help," she persisted. "I did," I said, "for 5.5 years. Silence on the line, thick and heavy. "They'll never forgive you," she said at last. "For what?" I asked. "For refusing to drown with them?" She didn't know how to answer that. Our contact fizzled out after that. Sometimes I heard updates through other relatives. Adam was doing better in his new program. Leon had moved out, renting a room with friends, no longer able to stand sharing a room with his little brother. My mother had developed a habit of sighing deeply and saying, "If only Sarah were here," whenever anything went wrong, weaponizing my absence even in my absence. I felt not nothing, but not what they expected. A muted sadness, maybe, for what our family could have been if any of them had been willing to look at me as anything other than a resource. But no guilt. That surprised even me. Spring came, my new routine solidified. I woke up to sunlight slanting through my small window. I made coffee on the machine that now only I used, no cups mysteriously disappearing from the counter. I sat at my desk, my own desk in my own corner, and logged into work or drove to the office if we were in person that day. My bills came directly to my email. Rent, $650. Electricity, $40. Internet, $25. My share. No shadows trailing behind them. I could see, month by month, my savings account creep upward instead of stalling in place. I bought a plant, a pothos, hardy and forgiving, and it thrived, curling around the curtain rod. I bought new sheets. Luxurious ones I'd never have splurged on when every spare euro felt sucked into a house that wasn't mine. On weekends, I stayed home sometimes, did nothing. No frantic cleaning before guests. No, "Sarah, please go to the store, we forgot," shouted last minute. No obligations other than my laundry and my meals. Occasionally, loneliness nudged at the edges. Humans are ecosystems. You don't just prune out parts without feeling the absence. But the quiet was different now. When I had lived in the big house, I had known two kinds of silence. One was the heavy kind after a fight, when my mother would stomp around the kitchen, banging pans, and my father would turn the TV up too loud. No one spoke directly, but the air filled with everything unsaid. The other was late at night, tiptoeing past my brother's closed doors, my parents asleep, the whole burden of tomorrow's logistics resting invisibly on my shoulders. Lists in my head, numbers, contingencies. Here my silence had no edges, it was just space. Sometimes I sat on the tiny balcony with a blanket around my legs, watching the street below. Couples walking, kids on scooters, dogs sniffing everything, cars passing. Life with its own hum, not demanding anything from me. One evening in early summer, my colleague Marta came over for the first time. "Wow," she said, standing in the doorway and looking around. "This is so you." "What does that mean?" I asked, smiling. "Clean, minimal, quiet. But that plant is kind of wild, so maybe not completely repressed," she teased. We cooked together in the tiny kitchenette, bumping elbows and laughing. We ate on the couch. She asked cautiously about my family. "I heard something about a court thing," she said, eyes searching my face. "There was," I said. "It's over." She waited. I could have given her the sanitized version. We had financial disagreements. We grew apart. Instead, for the first time, I laid it out plainly. Numbers and facts, like a ledger. By the time I finished, her expression had gone from shocked to angry. "That's insane," she said. "You were basically their bank, their live-in accountant, ATM, and maid, and they still treated you like the emergency fund they could tap whenever." "Yes," I said. "And they tried to sue you?" "Yes." She shook her head. "If my parents pulled that, I'd change my name and move to another country." I shrugged. "I just moved across town." She looked around again. "Do you ever miss them?" Her question was honest, not prying. I thought about it seriously. "I miss what I thought they were," I said at last. "What I pretended they were. Parents who would have been horrified to find out how much I was giving up. Brothers who would have noticed I never bought anything for myself. A family who saw me as a person, not just as someone who understands money, and therefore is responsible for all of theirs." "And now?" she asked. "Now I see them clearly," I said, "and I miss the fantasy less and less." She nodded slowly. "You're weirdly calm about it," she said. "I would be raging." "I did that internally for years," I said. "It didn't change anything. Calm got things done." We clinked our glasses together, not in a toast to revenge, but to survival, I guess. To boundaries. Months passed. My parents did not show up at my door again. The threat of legal trouble, perhaps, or simple exhaustion. Adam messaged once in late summer. "Hey, just wanted you to know I got a scholarship for my new program. It's not as fancy as the old one, but it's okay. Hope you're okay too." I stared at the message for a long time, feeling something knot and unknot in my chest. "I'm glad," I typed. "I knew you could handle things." He sent a thumbs-up emoji. Leon never contacted me directly. I heard via my aunt that he alternated between blaming me loudly for ruining his life and complaining about our parents' emotional manipulation. "They're driving me crazy," he reportedly said at some family gathering. "They can't expect me to live like a peasant." I did not feel obligated to rescue him from the peasant life. The mountain spa, I later learned, sent a demand letter when the payment bounced. It had been charged to the emergency card my mother had begged me to open, just in case. They'd maxed it. When they didn't pay, my credit took a small hit. I paid the minimum to stop the calls from the bank. Then I canceled the card. I did not tell my parents. It was my mess to clean up, but only this once more, to put a full stop at the end of the sentence. The next time my mother tried to use it, she discovered it was dead. My aunt said she had a fit. I listened and said nothing. I stopped following most of my relatives on social media. The occasional glimpses I did catch, my parents at some cheap restaurant, smiling a little too widely, captions about simple joys, no longer triggered a rush of resentment or grief. They were learning, slowly, to live within their means. I was learning quickly to live within mine. A year after the spa morning, I woke up in my little studio, sunlight striping the wall, and realized I felt normal. Not vigilant, not guilty, not braced. Just there. I sat up and listened to the building. Someone's kettle whistled faintly next door. A dog barked downstairs. Somewhere, a baby cried. Ordinary life. I put on a hoodie and padded to the kitchenette. The coffee machine whirred to life. I ground beans, measured water, watched the dark stream fill the carafe. I thought about the woman I'd been that morning a year ago, standing in front of an empty fridge in a big kitchen, doing the math of her own exploitation. She'd been exhausted, angry, scared underneath the numbness. She had also been, in that moment when she opened the file, more herself than she'd been in years. Limits are funny. People act like they appear overnight, that one day you snap out of nowhere. But the truth is, boundaries are drawn over and over in pencil until one day you pick up a pen. I poured coffee into my favorite mug. Plain white, no kitschy slogans, no memories attached except the ones I chose. I stepped out onto the balcony. The air smelled like weekend, someone's toast, the faint scent of car exhaust, damp earth from last night's rain. Below, people walked dogs, pushed strollers, carried shopping bags. None of them knew that a year ago, my entire identity had been tied up in keeping other people afloat. None of them cared. That anonymity felt like grace. Back inside, I sat at my desk and opened my banking app. Paycheck in. Standing orders out. Rent, utilities, savings contribution, a small automatic transfer to an index fund I'd started. The numbers balanced, not in the red, not weighted down by someone else's overdraft. I thought about my mother's words so many times. We're a family. We help each other. You're the oldest, you're the strongest, you're the only one who can handle this. I'd finally understood the unspoken second half, because if you don't, we refuse to. Boundaries, I was discovering, weren't just about saying no in a fight or blocking a number. They were about invoices, contracts, legal ownership, about whose name was on the bill, whose signature at the bottom of the page. You can tell someone, respect my boundaries until you're hoarse, or you can stop paying their rent. One is a request, the other is reality. Sometimes people ask me now, when the story leaks out in bits and pieces, colleagues over drinks, a date squinting at me over coffee, a therapist I tried for a while, if I ever regret being so drastic. Do you ever think you should have tried one more conversation? They ask. Laid it all out, given them a chance to change? I did have that thought occasionally, early on, in the middle of the night mostly, when old habits of self-doubt stirred. But then I remembered all the small conversations. The, Mom, I can't keep paying this much. The Dad, maybe we should find a cheaper place. The Leon, you need to get a real job. The Adam, you could work part-time. Every time, the responses had been variations on the same theme. You're so dramatic. It's not that bad. You're the responsible one. You'll manage. We'll pay you back someday. Be patient. Be understanding. Be good. The spa trip had not been a miscommunication. It had been a verdict. They had looked at me and decided that of all the people in their lives, the one who did the most was the easiest to leave behind. So no, I don't regret turning off the tap. My parents' lives are smaller now. My brothers are less cushioned. They have to think before they spend. They have to read their own contracts. Mine is smaller too on paper, but the space inside it is all mine. On some nights, I still dream of the big house. I walk its corridors, turning off lights in empty rooms, picking up empty glasses, closing windows left wide open. In those dreams, I never stop moving. Then I wake up in my small studio and realize I can see every corner from my bed. Nothing is leaking, nothing is broken, nothing is hidden. I lay there listening to the quiet and feel something I didn't have a name for back then. It isn't joy exactly or even contentment. It's more basic. Agency. I get up, I pay my bills, I buy myself fresh flowers when I feel like it. I work, I save, I choose. I don't wait for anyone to tell me I've done enough. I don't ask permission to keep what's mine. I stand at my window, coffee warming my hands, watching the city move, and I think, without drama, without defiance, just a calm, steady certainty. My space. My money. My life. And finally, blessedly, irrevocably, my silence.